Good morning and welcome
Hello.
to
Hi,
Coffee
good
with
morning.
Ken. Good morning, good morning. So I have my esteemed associates with me once again, Dr. April Brown, my beloved wife, and Butch McCracken, the man of the hour. He's here for a specific reason today because we have a topic that we're talking about today that is going to get some people's attention. And that is, how do you show honor in the workplace and at home in a world that is so easily offendable? That is a good question. And I think that we actually teach answers at the company. But I want us to dig into that just a little bit. And for those of you that don't know, Butch is the general manager of the company, and he deals a ton with HR things. He deals with some of you when things aren't going as well. Sometimes there's a mistake made, and Butch deals with problems as they bubble up through. And if 99.9% of them Butch that get escalated, Butch actually handles. He does this very well. So Butch, I want to start with you, and let's talk about how did we build a culture of honor at this company when people can be so offended?
Yeah, one thing I've learned in my many years of whether it's retail, here, home, is don't take it personally. When things happen, you can't be the guy that takes it on and owns it, right? You have to stay focused on what is the issue, and you can't take offense to it. You have to step in the other person's shoes. If you were bringing that to your boss, how would you want it handled? And sometimes the answers aren't what that person's looking for, but if you're fair and equitable across the board, with your responses, with how you handle things, and always tell the truth. Do your best to tell the truth, because when you don't tell the truth, that breaks something that you lose in an instant and takes a long time to get back. And I always think that once you break trust, there's still that peeking behind the curtain that person wants to do because that happened. So don't take it personally and put yourself in their shoes. With customers, with clients, same thing. When they have an issue, don't take it personally. What is it they're bringing to you, and how can you help them get out of that situation?
Yeah. So the golden rule. Remember the golden rule. Treat others how you want to be treated.
It comes down to that. It truly does. In however you attack life, is treat people the way you'd want to be treated.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that's easy.
Yeah.
You're kidding.
When you get caught up in this world
Yes.
with offense is really easy right now.
Yes.
Sadly, it's really easy. And when that is the culture of the world, as much as you try to stay out of it, there's still a pull. So you have to fight even harder to not own it. And whenever there's a situation, I always try to look at it and go, where's my ownership? Doesn't matter what it is. What am I responsible for? So that I can take responsibility for. With an individual, home, again, it takes work, and it's not always instant. It could come a day later when you go, I can't believe that. And then you got to go back. You got to go back and make it right, because it just continues to linger in there. So yeah.
It's very true.
Yeah.
So when you think of Destiny Global in the culture that we have really been working to instill from the very top to the very bottom, I think that we started off with just the core things of gyms, right? Our training on really personalities and understanding a person, because if I understand how you operate and I understand your strengths and your weaknesses based on how you may be feeling, and really approach that person. And I think that you exude that in the office. And I think that that's why I actually tease Butch a lot, because he's kind of like he's the work dad. When so people have a problem, and funny enough, if you come to Kerrville and you go to Butch's office, he's got a sofa in there like he's a psychiatrist, and you can sit on the sofa and have a conversation with Butch. And there's been a lot of conversation on Butch's sofa for sure, but that ability to understand how God created the person that you're talking to. And a lot of times it's really helping the employee look at something from a perspective that they may not have seen. and us looking at their perspective, as you said, Butch. But it's really and that's what does that do? That shows value. So how do you get past and build a culture that is thriving instead of constantly in turmoil and argumentative? Is one where you do that on value, because your opinions, you matter. And that's even with our clients, with you, is to make sure that we're showing value to you when we talk to you on the phone, whether we communicate with email or with on social media, is to do something to add value to that day. And there's another part of value that we're getting ready to experience in a marriage conference. And I often laugh about it because it's either you're going to laugh or you're going to cry when you hear Mark Gungor. And it's, of course, the whole event is built around laughter. But humor goes a long way in softening situations.
Yeah. I think you were talking about personality is very important. But I think it's also looking that you haven't walked in their shoes.
Right.
Like, just that person, when you think of even someone in a customer service that is dealing with a customer service situation, that person could have just found out that they have cancer, or someone they love has cancer. Like, you literally don't know what that person could be going through. So just know that you haven't walked in their shoes. You don't know what's going on in their life, that they're reacting that way. And for me, is just learning that I used to react a lot instead of respond. So I used to just react out of
say that again.
I used to react a lot instead of respond.
Oh, tell me more about that.
So I used to
this is going to be good.
Usually just an emotional reaction.
Gotcha.
So I would just have an emotion, and I would just have a reaction to it. And a lot of people call them triggers or whatever. Like, I would just get an emotional trigger, and then I would just react instead of responding. And a lot of times how you learn to respond, which is training has helped me learn how to respond, is basically already having an idea in your head of how you're going to respond in situations, instead of no matter what emotion you have. So there's a lot of, and I used to think of scripts, that feels so that feels so artificial, but scripts have helped a lot to do conflict resolution, and the scripts that I've learned, and they become a lot more natural as you practice them. And when you're first doing it, it's very unnatural, but once you start to practice it and you see the response is so different.
Right.
How they respond, how you're responding, how you're feeling, because your feelings start to kind of tamper down, and you start to emotionally kind of stable out a little bit instead of having high emotion. You start to okay, I can respond in a way that will create a different response in somebody else.
Yes.
And then it can be resolved in a loving way. So I think that's been huge for me, to not just react in a situation, especially to you and my kids. But how can I honor in this situation? How can I be more honoring and not just respond from my own feelings and emotions? That's huge.
Yeah, I like that. So we want to respond and not react. And I think that based on the different personality style that you have, that can be harder, especially if a person with a very aggressive personality, one that's going to go take the mountain that we call Ruby, and we've had something going on, and someone calls, and then there is usually a reaction that occurs if we're not intentional.
Yeah.
And so responding intentionally is the key there, is what you're thinking.
Yeah, and I've learned that through, I tell a story about my son who has that fun personality, and you were talking about laughter. I think that can be a defense mechanism sometimes, so you kind of have to wonder what's going on in that person. If it's a situation that you're being serious and then they're laughing or being funny, you can know that's a defense mechanism. So what's going on with them that is creating this, and just backing down and making it lighter so that they can kind of deal with whatever they're being defensive about. So my son, one time we were having a serious conversation, and it was to do with a relationship that he had going on at the time, and so he literally put on an Captain America mask while I'm sitting here having this serious conversation. Just like there's a Captain, I don't even know why I was there at the time, but he like seriously just puts it on, and he's just looking at me like this, like with this Captain America mask on. And used to, I would have gotten really mad. Like, I would be like, I am having this serious conversation with you. What? You're being disrespectful. Like, what are you doing? But I just, now that I understand his personality a lot more and his response, or how he's reacting to something that was serious and probably uncomfortable for him.
Right.
So he was like trying to make it light. And so I just like made it light too. And I'm like, oh, you're hilarious, Captain America, you know? And so kind of made light of it. And then we laughed, and then we kind of returned a little bit later to the serious conversation, came to just try to make it not as serious and just how we can resolve the situation. So like just understanding again the personality, understanding what you're dealing with and why they might be reacting that way.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and that was a funny instance in our home, and it's still talked about, Noah and his Captain America mask. But it gets back to you knowing who you were talking to and valuing him as a human. And that can happen in your home. That can happen in your place of work. And as you start doing that, what you find is people will come in and they'll feel free to let their guard down with you. And that makes for a much richer, much deeper conversation than one where even asking a client is knowing that they're having, it appears that you're having a hard day. I'm so sorry about that. How can I really help you? Just even opening that door. Now, sometimes you're going to find someone when you tell them that, hey, I see that some people think that you're taking a risk. Well, actually, you're still honoring them to allow them to have a response, even if it's a negative response. You're still giving them a window to respond, and then it's just knowing what you're going to say next. Because Butch had a saying that he talked about several years when I first joined the company is your mind cannot do what it's not been through or experienced before. And so as you get into a situation, you're not going to know what to do if you haven't thought through that. That's why a lot of times when I go into a difficult situation, I call it the meeting before the meeting. Yeah. And it's actually more important than the meeting because I'm setting structure and boundaries mentally about where I'm going to go. And if I feel that we're getting off track, I will reshift that and say, I'm sorry, this is a bad time if we're talking. May I call you later?
Yeah, that's in Grooming the Next Generation.
It is.
Success book that Danny talks about, like before you go to out to eat with your kids, or you set that intention so that when you get there, you're not just having the intention in your head and then having an expectation for them that they can't meet, but you set that, like, we're going to the restaurant, this is what I expect from you, this is what you'll get afterward, and giving them that looking forward to a reward if they if their behavior matches that.
That's very good. Is that what you do to me? So I know.
Yeah. Actually, both of us came up with a meeting before the meeting kind of thing. We probably need to have these meetings, because if we just go into a situation where we haven't talked about what your expectation is for that meeting, our first meeting that we did a business meeting together and came out of that, and we both we weren't in agreement with how that went down. So, right. But if we would have had that meeting, well, actually we did have, but I think I didn't really help you I didn't really listen to you before that as well as what your expectation was. I just had my expectation of what the meeting was. So kind of both people setting what their intentions and listening to them about what their intention for the meeting is. So which
we call coming to agreement.
Exactly.
So if you don't come to agreement, and we train this, we go through this in depth in our coaching program, is when people come together and they don't have agreement for what they're meeting on, you can pretty much bet there's going to be a disaster at some point. Or if some person is pushing into the other person and they're not ready for that conversation. It can, so you don't have agreement. So then it's it's like I talked about in the last first steps that we had, and that was about intruders. And that's where somebody's pushing into something that you're not ready to get into, or they're taking time away from you where you're trying to do something else because it's not an appropriate time to have that conversation. And we have both been very lenient with one another and being patient in how we've done that, especially recently. In the last year, we've really amped that up a lot. So thank you for that. We've done very well.
Friendships too, like we talk regularly about intentions and making sure that we're honoring, like when we get together, which we still need to do our double dates, which have a lot of fun together.
Yes, they are.
Yes, they are. No, you're right. That's good.
You just never know where we're going to end up, but
Yeah.
that's part of the fun things of those times together. So thank you for joining us today. I want to remind you about next weekend. We have a special event going on right here in the studio, and Mark Gungor will be live, coming to you virtually, a virtual live, March 18th and 19th. It is Laugh Your Way to a Better Marriage, and it is fantastic in every way. And we would not bring him to the stage if it was not. I mean, this guy has got so much skill, and he's helped us, so we know he's going to help others. But just really, even a refresher, even if you think you have the best marriage, believe me, you still have something to learn.
Exactly.
All of us do. And
that's how, like, if you're not intentional with it, then it's not going to get better. Like, what you focus on it grows. So if you're not focusing on your marriage and you're not investing in it, then it's not going to grow. And believe me, if you're newly married and you think it's just going to stay that way, it doesn't. Okay? I'm just going to tell you, it doesn't. So working on it, being intentional with it is so important.
That is true. And likewise, we have an event coming up April 29th through May 1st. We have a First Steps to Success event. It is going to be fantastic as we dig into our slogan, earn more, keep more to do more. And we're going to continue to keep building on our skills and continue to pour into one another. We're going to do a little more exercises at this event because I feel like as a group, we've gotten away from really practicing form and some things that Danny had done in previous events. Jackie, Carmen, and I will be digging in. We'll do a little bit more workshop in some areas, just so that we're making sure we're practicing what we're learning. Because assuming that we know how to do those things as we have learned doesn't always happen. And the way that it happens is through practice. So we're going to do that. But we thank you for your time today. We look forward to seeing you. Yes, we look forward to seeing you soon. And have
next time.
That's right. Have a great day.
Bye-bye.